Welcome to Tour in the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. And we got to talk about injuries. Of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars, of course, their young core. They had high hopes for with quarterback Trevor Lawrence and running back Travis Etienne. Their 2 first-round picks out of Clemson. Of course, under first-year head coach Urban Meyer. Well, one of them, that optimism to the start of the year has ended. Travis Etienne exited the preseason game versus the New Orleans Saints recently, and it was noted that he will have surgery and miss the entire year. Of course, it was first diagnosed as a sprained foot. To help us gather a little bit more of what happened and, of course, how it all changed and how it all got here, welcome back to the show, Dr. Erin Wilson. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Now, they first announced it was a sprain, that the sprain was a Liz Frank sprain, and that Etienne would have surgery. It kind of threw me off because at first they said it was a sprain, and I didn't kind of understand what was going on there.
So, when you're talking about kind of the middle of the foot, you're talking about, if we're going through anatomy, where your arch is. That's pretty much your midfoot, with everything above the arch going towards your toes being your forefoot, and then everything going back, including your heel, that's going to be your hind foot. So the midfoot is where the injury occurred, right where your arch is. When you're talking about a sprain, basically a sprain is overstretching of a ligament, right? So wherever that particular ligament is, it's going to be the location and then sprain. So for the Liz Frank sprain, or Liz Frank sprain, named after the surgeon that discovered the injury, a sprain, it's going to be kind of painful, but a sprain is going to go away. The pain is going to go away kind of, in a matter of days when you have your rest, your ice, your compression, your elevation. If you notice that pain is kind of sticking around, and his walking might not have gotten any better, the swelling might have worsened, then that's when they take an x-ray of the foot. On the x-ray is when you're going to be able to determine exactly that it's the fracture versus the sprain. So if it's a Liz Frank fracture, it could be either a complete tear of that ligament, it could be dislocation of bones in that midfoot, or it can be a broken bone in that midfoot. So it's really a kind of catch-all term for that area of the foot. It's not necessarily, I can point to this one thing. So we don't know if he had a dislocation of a bone in that area of the foot, or if he had a broken bone, or if he had just that ligament being torn. So on the x-ray, if the ligament is torn, you're going to kind of see the first ray, right? That's going to lead up into your big toe. And the second ray, that's going to lead up to your second toe. The distance between them is going to widen, right? So if your ligament is intact, they're going to be close together, like your normal foot is supposed to look. So if it's torn, it's going to widen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of why the diagnosis went from a sprain to a fracture. It was just basically probably confirmation on an x-ray. And then also some telltale signs. If you look at a foot that has that fracture, usually the whole bottom of the foot is black and blue. And you don't usually see that with any other type of injury of the foot. So there's no really bruising on the top or on the side, like in a high ankle sprain, it's really ugly up on the inside of your ankle. So in this particular injury, the bottom of your foot is all black and blue. And usually that's how the doctors can usually tell prior to getting the x-ray. Couple of other things, if, say an athlete like that is having trouble doing a single leg heel raise, can't get off the ground. That's usually another sign that something's going on. There's a fracture or a tear there because they don't have the stability in their arch to do a heel raise. That makes sense?
Makes perfect sense. So kind of like something like pushing off and things like that, you can't really do that quite as much with the Liz Frank, correct?
No, you're not going to do pretty much any plyometrics. You're not going to be doing any jumping. You're not going to be doing any of that because you're going to have severe pain. And you're not going to have any stability in your arch to even do that, let alone come back down during a jump and absorb all the shock in your foot.
Got you. Okay. Now, you did kind of go over a few different things. So, there are different levels to the Liz Frank sprain that raise it to the level of needing surgery, like the tear, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, usually go from kind of mild to, the severe. So if it's mild, like I said, you'll kind of take care of it like you would a really bad ankle sprain. You're going to rest it, you're going to ice it, you're going to use compression, do all that good stuff. You might wear a boot for 6 weeks, just to protect that injury until it kind of calms down some. When it starts to kind of get to the severe phase, when you're talking about, it completely being torn or dislocation of a bone or a broken bone in that midfoot, then you require the surgery. So more often than not, they'll do an ORIF or internal fixation, where basically they'll reposition those bones in the foot, in the mid part of the foot, and they'll use a plate and some screws to hold them in place. And then once you have the surgery, you have to be in a cast for about 6 to 8 weeks, allowing that to kind of heal before you can come out of it and even think about putting weight on your foot.
Ooh, seems like a lot of long kind of process there. Ooh, but let's see. As far as the rehab, you did talk about being in a cast and things like that. Well, when he gets out of the cast or whatever levels of rehab, what are kind of the levels of rehab that he has to go through?
So, with any rehab, you got to go through your acute phase. That's being in your cast. When you come out of there, maybe 8 weeks later, anybody that's in any type of cast, the first thing you have to do, you have to get your range of motion back, because being immobile, all that connective tissue, all of your muscle tissue is pretty much contracted in that spot, because the first level of focus after you have a surgery, you want stability. So now that you've had stability for 8 weeks, you want to maximize your flexibility and your mobility. So then you'll go into, all things ankle stretching, stretching your calf, stretching your soleus, manual interventions where you might do some joint moves, you might do some scar massage to kind of loosen up any tissue in there that might have, developed scar tissue in the foot. Anything to kind of make the foot more mobile. That's what you're going to go into next. Once you do that, then you'll probably put them in an ankle brace, try to get them to do some walking to start with. And you're going to have to emphasize, the correct way to walk, heel through toe. So that way they don't develop any bad habits or any bad biomechanics of the foot, because that's going to go on through the rest of their rehab. If you can't walk properly, you can't run properly, you can't single leg balance, you can't jump, you can't run, you can't cut, all things that he has to do for a running back. So it's going to start slow and then progress from there with, kind of 3 to 6 months out, when they're walking good without a cane, without, any type of assistive device. When you're walking good, then you want to go slowly, into stabilizing the foot. Any type of resistance bands to work, all planes of motion, your inversion, your eversion, your plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, all the ways your ankle moves. You're going to go into that. Then you're going to start moving up the chain. So the next joint is going to be your knee joint. So I can't have stability at my ankle if I don't have stability at my knee. And you're just going to go up from there. Once you're able to do that, then you can start thinking about trying single leg stuff. Because the biggest thing that you have to get back in your foot is your foot being able to feel where it is in space or proprioception. So if he can't balance on that foot, that means he's not ready.
Gotcha. Okay. So as far as returning to the field, what would you say be the soonest he could return to action in terms of practicing and things of that nature?
Well, I mean, stranger things have happened, but typically that injury is one that's known to have chronic pain associated with it. So, technically the ligament could be fixed or the fracture could be fixated, but it's just closely associated with, in the long term, a lot of people have had either develop arthritis, early onset of arthritis in their foot, or just chronic pain that just never goes away. So that's kind of why the diagnosis, that they gave was he's pretty much going to be shut down for the year, because more often than not, it takes about anywhere from 6 to 9 months to even start feeling like, you can run and jump and cut and do stuff on that foot. And then, you have to have those pins and those plates and screws and whichever they're going to use in the foot, usually have those in for 4 to 6 months. And then the doctors go back in once the fracture's healed and take those out, because kind of leaving those in can sometimes cause more pain. So they usually go in, take those out to kind of see if the normal mechanics of the foot have returned at that point. So he's not coming back to the field before those plates and screws come out, if that's the surgery that they choose to do.
Gotcha. So from what it sounds like, my next question, you pretty much answered it, that the injury could linger over the rest of his career potentially.
Yeah, so it might, the injury itself might not, because, they'll fix the fracture, but it's going to be pain associated with it for a while. That's just a painful injury, and it's a sucky injury. And it's kind of like, usually the only way it happens is kind of a falling, twisting injury, which, is very possible in a football player, especially a running back, to fall with your foot planted in the ground and twist, so it's unfortunate. But it's probably something that's going to bother him for a while. Hopefully it doesn't. I mean, he is young. He is a rookie, and hopefully he doesn't have to worry about the onset of any arthritic changes or anything for quite a while. And they jumped on top of it quick, so all of those things, early intervention is going to help. Anytime you're talking about an elite athlete, they have access and accommodations to rehab and therapy 2 to 3 times a day, every day. So when you're talking about a normal person, you think that they might not be able to go back to any type of leisure sports or activities. You're thinking a year, 13 months. You're talking about an elite athlete that can do rehab multiple times a day, week after week after week, with their ultimate goal, getting back to the field. They're a lot more motivated, and they have a lot more at their disposal to be able to come back sooner. So even coming back in 8, 9 months, it'd be a big accomplishment because the normal patient would.
Gotcha. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on and kind of breaking that down so we can kind of understand what's going on with Travis Etienne. I mean, I really was interested in how, it went from one range to the other, and you definitely broke that down. Definitely want to thank you again. Of course, you're always welcome to come on anytime you want. And also, I got to ask it, college football season is coming.
Uh-huh.
What do you got your Florida State Seminoles looking like this year?
You want a win prediction?
If you would like to.
Or let's go first week. So first week we got Notre Dame at home. We're the primetime game on Sunday, Labor Day weekend. I'd like my school to upset Notre Dame at home in Doak Campbell. We're going to honor Bobby, and I just feel like that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm feeling.
Okay. Well, we heard it here first. Dr. Erin Wilson. Florida State upsets Notre Dame. I know plenty of people would love to see it. Thank you all for tuning in, touring the AFC South. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.